In this lesson, we're going to look at the final part of a try-catch, and that's called a try-catch finally. A finally clause, or block, will contain code that's executed no matter what, so that even if exceptions are thrown throughout the program, and no matter what state the program's in or where the code happens to be, before the program completes, the code inside the finally block will execute. So I've got our type program on the screen again, and we're going to add a finally block to it. So we do that just by typing finally, then open a curly brace. Then all we want to do here in this particular example is close our file. So we'll write an if statement that says if mfile is not null, then try to close the file. Then we still have to catch because we still could have a possibility of an exception thrown. So we need to catch even the fact that we're trying to close the file. Of course, at this point, there's not much you can do here, but we're still going to catch it anyway. Close the if and then close the finally. So again, to make the point one more time, the code inside finally is going to execute regardless. In fact, even if we had no catch blocks or catch clauses in our code, finally would still execute if we have written it out. You need to use finally when you are needing to close resources, for example, closing a file, because without doing that, you leave resources open and you can have all sorts of problems. Another good example, and we're going to learn how to do this in the next chapter, is working with a database. You always want to close a database after you've opened it, and you might put that in a finally block to close it at the end of a program, because again, you don't want to leave that database open. It's a waste of resources to leave files and databases open at the end of a program. So that's how the finally block works. We don't need to run this because you're not going to see any result from it. So I'll just leave the code here. And again, use finally for any code that you need to clean up your program before the program quits, because the finally block will be executed at the very end as long as it's present in your program. So that wraps up this lesson on the try-catch finally, and we're going to move on to our exercise for this chapter.